Barbosa, we had a long discussion last week, if you recall, about fulfilling the mitzvah of Sreifa, of a Humas, he says Bezdin on Shabbos. And if not for a special pasuk of B'chol Moshmol Sechem, the Gemara says we would have violated the Shabbos by preparing the psila, which we had to burn and convert into a molten lead, for the sake of the mitzvah of a Humas. And the Gemara thought that that would prove to us that Esei Docha Los Haseh, even in a Los Hashesh Mokar. Then the Gemara rejects it. So let's take a look at the Gemara's rejection. And that's Rav Shimi on Daf. Daf Vavam Beis. Just give me a second to get myself oriented here. Here it is. 3 lines up before the bottom of Daf Vavam Beis. Omer Rav Shimi bar Ashi. So basically, let's try to summarize Rav Shimi bar Ashi. And he's claiming that the entire episode here of overriding the Shabbos for the sake of a Humas has nothing to do with Esei Docha Losas, but rather it's a Kal V'chomer. And the way we understood the Kal V'chomer was the following, that Avoda overrides the Shabbos, and Misa overrides Avoda. And therefore, Misa, if it overrides Avoda, would certainly override the Shabbos. And that's on the top of Daf Zayin Amrav. Uma Avoda Shehi Chamura. And Docha Shabbos. And yet, Ritzicha is Docha Osa. Instead of the word Osa, we'll fill it in to a pronoun for Avoda. Okay. So how do we know that Ritzicha is Docha Avoda, meaning that we put to death a murderer, even though the Avoda will be lost? So Rashi explains, Shemhoya Rotzeach Kohen, V'rotze Kohen, sorry, Shemhoya Rotzeach Kohen, V'rotze Lavon Avoda, Bezdin Sholchem V'vian also Labus. But I just want to check something out. I didn't get a chance to do this. There's something in the back. Occasionally he adds something to Rashi. Let's see by chance. Oh, now he adds a little bit to Rashi here. I'm trying to see in the footnotes. This is based on a Gemara Masechet Yevamot. That, let's say this Kohen who is guilty of murder, he is Samach L'Mizbeach, he's already approaching Mizbeach, or even if he's holding on to the Chronos L'Mizbeach, Bezdin Sholchin, right? Rashi says Bezdin Sholchin B'vino Solamus. And then Rashi says, Ella Imkain, Ella Imkain Hoya Al Gag HaMizbeh, or Al Gabi HaMizbeh. Yavodosa B'yod. The Elam Cain implies that Rashi is telling us that if already the Rotzeach is on top of the Gag of the Mizbeach, then if he has his Avodah in hand, then we don't take him out to die. So that's what we have here in Rashi. Now, where is this derived from? How do we know that if he has, unless he's on the Gagans, but in general, how do we know that we take the Rotseach to be killed and we don't allow him to do the Avodah? Shenemar, this is on the second line of the Gemara Daf Zayin, Me'im mizbechi tikochenu lamus. So he wants to do the Avodah, and we're not going to allow him to do the Avodah. So again, in the note here, based on a Gemara in Sanhedrin, he points out that even if the carbon that he wants to be makar is a carbon tzibur, like for example the carbon tamid, which is so important in karbanos, is nevertheless, we're not allowing him to do that. We're going to take him to die. Now he writes, avoda of carbon tamid overrides the Shabbos. And now the mitzvah of bringing the, of executing the condemned overrides the carbon tamid. The Shabbos, shenitches v'mei avoda, eno din shetehei ritzicha dochos. How much more so would ritzicha be docha Shabbos? And that's why we need the pasuk of B'chol Moshvot Seichem. But without the pasuk B'chol Moshvot Seichem, the Kal V'chomer would have compelled me to derive this conclusion. Okay. So that's what we have. So I don't know what pages you might have here. I'm going to look at page Nun Gimel first. And Hishu Tosfos Rabbeinu Peretz Al Divrei Rashi. Elo Medes HaGemara Ritzicha B'Shabbos Me'avoda Shedoches HaShabbos. Ritzicha meaning to take out the murderer and put him to death. You have this? So it's the second major paragraph on the right column on Nun Gimel. It says, Are avoda shehischil ba. Right, Rashi implies, I mean, it's pretty explicit in Rashi, that if he's on top of the Mizbeach, and avoda b'yada, which I guess means he's already in the process of doing the avoda, is then we let him do the avoda. Is emo reading also Misha? Shenemar me'im mizbechi tikchenol musviol me'al me'al mizbechi. That's based on a drasha Rabbi Kiva in Masechet Yevamot. So if that be the case, then af anu nomar shelo tidches Shabbos mipnei ritzicha. Now again, I don't know, the parallel here is a little bit strange, the analogy to his Chila Shabbos. But he's saying that his Chila Avoda, then Ritzicha is not Docha the Avoda. So if it's Chila Shabbos, then Ritzicha should not be Docha Shabbos. You see where it's a loose kind of analogy, He's saying you want to be Docha Shabbos just like you're Docha Avoda. But the truth is you're not Docha Avoda unless you didn't start the Avoda. Once you started the avodah, you're not docha the avodah. So if you started the Shabbos, what gives you the right to derive the conclusion that you can be docha the Shabbos once you've already started the Shabbos? If you started the avodah, you're not docha the avodah for the sake of rotzeach, for the sake of putting him to death. Quotes the Aruch LaNer. Now the Aruch LaNer asks another kasha. So I guess you want to answer one kasha by asking another kasha. Aruch LaNer quotes this Tosfos, Dibra Maskil Uma, which is the top Tosfos on Daf Zayin. And if you take a look at the beginning of Tosfos Hiksha Rav, Rabbi Yaakov de Orlinus, Nema Daya. Now, in the case of a Kohen Rotzeach who wants to do the avodah, we're not violating the avodah. So that's called Shevi Altas. But in the case of putting a woman to death through Sreifa on Shabbos, then you're actively violating the Shabbos. And we have a principle called Dayo. Dayo means that a Kal V'chomer is limited. It's not a free for all. So that's called Dayo Levomen Adin Lios Kinod. So you're telling me that Ritzicha is Docha Avoda, and therefore certainly Ritzicha will be Docha Shabbos. I'm going to tell you, Ritzicha is only Docha Avoda b'Shevi Altas. But now you can't derive from that for the sake of Ritzicha, you could violate the Shabbos b'Kum V'aseh. In other words, an Aver b'Kum V'aseh is a much more severe Aver than one b'Shevi Altas. And the status of the Avoda with regard to Rotzeach is Shevi Altas. Don't do the Avoda. There's no act of desecrating the Avodah. But in the case of Shabbos, you want to derive the conclusion that for the sake of putting the condemned victim to death, you could violate the Shabbos actively by burning the lead. So let's go back now to the Aruch LaNer, and he says the following. Says Al Pi Divrei Atos Shehikshu Al Kal V'chomer Arei Dail V'Omer Adin Lios Kinodun or Kinidon Ukshem Sheritzicha Ein Lo Zavol Shevi Altas Av Shabbos fine Betirtzu Betirutza Masheni. I thought it was. I didn't realize there were two terutzim in Tosfos. Let's just see if I can find the second teretz in Tosfos. The first one is based on a complicated sugi bava kama. Here's the second one. Oh, the Od Mirror. Okay, it's like halfway down the Tosfos. The Od Mirror, Lomar Del Chacha, Dainin and Hachi, Ma Avoda de Kilo. Dafya Shabbos, I guess what he means by Kilo is that relative to Ritzicha, Avoda's Kal, and yet Avoda's Docha Shabbos is Ritzicha, etc. The Chamira lo kolshkin. Okay, let's see how this could help the Aruch HaShul, the Aruch LaNer. Says, "Ein libud hakal v'chomer mimasha ein avoda nidches mipnei Ritzicha, el mimasha avoda docha Shabbos." Chenu bir divrei Gemara. Ma avoda de kilo. Dachya Shabbos, Ritzicha de Chamira lo kolshkin. Ubamehi chamura v'kach she'avoda nidches miponeh. Ulefi zeh mimshavim gam divrei Rashi. This answer Tosfos will answer up Tosfos' kash as well. for a post kash on Rashi. Now, how do you work that out? Kash on Rashi was, you see that once he started the avodah, then in a finami, it would, right? It would not be docha the avodah. The avodah would be docha the ritzicha. And in Shabbos, you already started the Shabbos. So what's the Aruch LaNer's answer? And we have a different kavachol that if avodah is docha Shabbos, how much more so would ritzicha be docha Shabbos? Oh, interesting. Oh, now I think I have it. In the case of avodah being docha Shabbos, I mean, we write the carbon Talmud is brought on Shabbos. That's already bekum baseh. If avoda could be docha Shabbos, how much more so could ritzicha, which is more chara than avoda, be docha Shabbos? Then now you don't have dayo anymore. Right? You can't say dayo because it's shevi alta. So we're talking about avoda, which is bekum baseh. So once we violated Shabbos for the avoda bekum baseh, how much more so should we violate the Shabbos for the sake of ritzicha, even though it's kum baseh? How do we know that ritzicha is more chomer than avoda? From the fact that we'll push off the avoda in order to implement the ritzicha. We waive the avoda obligation for the sake of the obligation to put him to death. And that's just a Gili Milsa to prove that avoda, that ritzicha is more chomer than avoda. But the real kavachomer is from the fact that avoda is docha Shabbos, how much more so ritzicha should be docha Shabbos. But then there's no diet. Now Rashi's assuming that the person who's grabbing onto the mizbeach, and if he made it all the way up to the Gaga mizbeach, he's a Kohen, and we can't take him out to be killed. And not only that, the Kohen is a deliberate murder. He's Rotzach b'mezid. But the Rambam in Hilchus Rotzach, Rotzach, what does it say? Okay. The Rambam says, "Hamizbeach koled es hahorig b'shogeg." They were not talking about amazing here at all. Shrei nevar b'horig b'zodon, me'im b'zbechit chelu amus. Bichlal shahorig b'shogeg eino nerag b'mizbeach. Bichach hahorig b'shogeg. So we're not talking about a Kohen. We're not talking about amazing. Kolto mizbeach. Orgo shom gol adam, or he's a nerag. He's saying that mizbeach is a miklat for rotzach b'shogeg. The Ram is totally oblivious to this scenario of a Kohen who's standing on the Mizbech and he's about to do the Avodah. And the Mizbech is going to protect him, so to speak, even though he's a Horig B'mezid. We're going to allow him to complete the Avodah. Now the Ram is saying that a Rotzeh is Shogeg, he holds on to Mizbeach, and it's a miklat for him. He's not doing the Avodah, he's not even a Kohen. Kain ma bein a Rotzeh Shogeg Rotzeh B'mezid, although after Rotzeh Shogeg, Einam Mizbeach Koled also came who Kohen V'avodah B'yodah. Echos of a Ram Michlal Shal Horig B'Shogeg. Eino Nerag B'Mizbeach. Again, what's the kasha? Mishnah Melch's kasha. Rambam said, let's go over one more time. The Mizbech is koled is a horig b'shogeg. In the case of Zada me'im mizbuchi tichenol amus, michal shal horig b'shogeg, eno nerag b'mizbech. Ficha horig b'shogeg, v'kol to Mizbech. He's basically in an ear mikvah. What's the Mishnah's kasha? Oina omed al gabi Mizbech, boda b'yodo, im horag b'zodon, or im mashlim es avodos. Okay. Ma ben rotzeh b'shogeg rotzeh b'mezi. Shogeg. Mizbech koled so. Doesn't quote the whole Rambam. Vur b'loshen Rambam. So the Mizbech is only koled if he's a kohen v'avoda b'yod. In echos of a Rambam, michlal shahorig b'shogeg, eno nerag Mizbech. Get the cut. All right, I don't have access to the Rambam now, so we'll leave it for the time being. Maybe we'll come back to it. Now, you have Nun Dalet? No. Let's take a break. I'll ask you to copy Nun Dalet, Nun Hey, if there's paper and all that stuff. And in the meantime, I'm going to look for the Rambam in Rotseach, and maybe we'll be able to figure this out. Hey, you base. Okay, thanks.